tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, the old salty dog John Martin, and of course the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Master Ted Yoho. Top of the afternoon there to you, sir. Or getting
Same
it just
to you,
started,
man.
I suppose.
Hope you had a great weekend, and I know I did. Great. It was a nice day. Nice weekend.
I had a good weekend. I stayed home. I didn't go fishing. I worked around like I was telling you right before the show. I'm the pool boy. I'm the yard man. I'm the maintenance guy. I am all of this kind of stuff. And I actually did something I normally don't do. I voted early yesterday.
Did you?
Driving downtown, I didn't even know Hawthorne was doing an early vote on Sunday, and they had it open. I went ahead, pulled in there, and did my duty because I'm kind of busy a lot, and I didn't want to have to ride all the way into town and come back and all that. But I voted and got my I vote sticker on the back of my phone now.
There you go.
So I encourage people to get out and vote. There's big primaries tomorrow in about half a dozen states. Some interesting ones that we could talk about, like the Wisconsin one. We're going to talk about that lady that's running for governor here in a minute. But of course, South Carolina's got a special primary because of Lindsey Graham passing on, and his sister is running, as well as 3 or 4 other people, including a gentleman you served in Congress with, I believe, that was the
Ralph Norman governor.
Yeah, the Appalachian Trail guy. That dude.
Oh, Mark Sanford.
Yeah, he's running. He finally got off the Appalachian Trail, and that's an inside joke for people that can follow the news. Look his name up. We won't get into it. But tomorrow's a big day. I guess every Tuesday
it is a big day
for the next couple of weeks. Florida's primary is not
18th.
Tomorrow, but the following Tuesday.
August 18th.
But I voted, Ted.
Well, good for you, man. And that's what our goal is, to educate people, motivate them, and activate them. And you got activated by watching your own show.
You absolutely are right. And I've already made that call. Call Freddie. You see tagged up there, because we need your support. You need to get on board with us. Become a sponsor of the show. Of course, always like what we're doing, share what we're doing. But Ted, there's something that there's certain debates that we have these days that really are baffling to me, that I can't even believe that we have to have them. The definition of a woman. I never would you have thought, even a couple years ago, let alone a decade ago, that you'd have to debate about what the definition of a woman is?
That just shows you the sign of the times that we're in. When we get to where we have to do this, and you got the transgender in sports, and you've got a Supreme Court justice that politically pivots around that question so she doesn't have to answer it, because she doesn't want to be hung by the tongue, and just instead of coming out and answer the question. They create controversy by doing that, and it divides America more. And, it's just such a disservice. So no, I can't believe that we're at that point in America.
Well, it's getting kind of heated now, and we'll get into it. But you mentioned the now Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is her name, and people may or may not remember this, but during her confirmation hearing, the current Senator Marsha Blackburn, who is, by the way, running for governor in Tennessee, going to be interesting there. But she asked a couple of questions of Ms. Jackson in the Senate hearing, and I want to play a little clip of that, because in fairness to all of us out here, if you have a Supreme Court justice that can't define a woman, I don't know. The rest of us may have a hard time as well. But let's check this out, and we'll come back and talk.
Sure.
Let me ask you this then. United States versus Virginia, the Supreme Court struck down VMI's male-only admission policy. Writing for the majority, Justice Ginsburg stated, Supposed inherent differences are no longer accepted as a ground for race or national origin classifications. Physical differences between men and women, however, are enduring. The two sexes are not fungible. A community made up exclusively of one sex is different from a community composed of both. Do you agree with Justice Ginsburg that there are physical differences between men and women that are enduring?
Senator, respectfully, I am not familiar with that particular quote or case,
Okay.
so it's hard for me to comment as to whether
All
or
right.
not.
I'd love to get your opinion on that, and you can submit that. Do you interpret Justice Ginsburg's meaning of men and women as male and female?
Again, because I don't know the case, I don't know how I interpret it. I need to read the whole
Okay.
thing.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the
All right.
law and I decide. So I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about. Just last week, an entire generation of young girls watched as our taxpayer-funded institutions permitted a biological man to compete and beat.
There you have it. I mean, it's ridiculous, Ted. When I first saw that, I'm thinking to myself, and this is probably a bit crude, well, she ought to be able to define a woman. She could just go like, there you are.
And it's what amazes me more is that they voted for her and approved her. And of course, they had the majority back then. But you would think some of the Democrats would have challenged her on that, because this goes from being silly to being absurd. What we're doing in our country. You look at this whole DEI wokeism, then the transgenderism, then men and women's sports, and it just goes on, and it's a race to the bottom of society. And this is why, like him or not, Donald Trump did this country a favor on the conservative side, and upholding the traditions and values by the Supreme Court justices. And I got to give Mitch McConnell credit too, because he prevented Merrick Garland from being a Supreme Court justice. But yet we get a Ketanji Brown, and then you can imagine if Merrick Garland was in there with Ketanji Brown, how detrimental that would have been to this country.
Yeah, well, of course, now they want to pack the court. They want to,
Sure.
increase it to 13, I guess, or something to that effect. Crazy. To me, it's ridiculous to even think that it needs to be that way. But this debate about what is a woman is actually now becoming dangerous to women. I want Sophie Cunningham. I guess you know who she is. I never
Sure.
really knew about her that much because I didn't follow women's basketball other than my granddaughters. I've been to a lot of women's basketball games,
Right.
but I didn't really know much about Miss Cunningham. But now everybody knows her. Not only as the pointer, she did that pointing thing, but she was in a game this weekend. Now she plays with Caitlin Clark with the Indiana Fever, I think it is. And I want to play a video of this because not only was it a ridiculously hard foul, which happens, it's not really about women or race.
It's a contact sport.
Other underlying things in it we'll get into in a minute. But check this video out and we'll come right back.
First few minutes, but she's at 8 points in 3 minutes and has not missed. But that is attacked and in a vulnerable position. I don't see how that's anything other than a flagrant 2.
I mean, that was about as hard a foul. Literally could take her head off, break her neck, her knee even got twisted a little bit. She came up with a bloodied mouth. Now, this kind of stuff happens in both men and women's sports. So
Sure.
that in and of itself is really not the issue to me, Ted, but she's clearly being targeted because of her views about men competing in women's sports. She's been very outspoken, opposed to it. She's not anti-transgender or gay phobic or homophobic. She just thinks that only women, especially like in high school and stuff, should compete against other women. Why is that so insane or crazy?
I don't know. It's crazy. And that's the lunacy we have in this country. And that's why these elections matter. I mean, again, you get a Biden or an AOC or any of that kind of administration that's to the far left, the wacky left, you're going to get more of this stuff. And they're going to say, these things are, that's normal. And they're trying to make the abnormal normal, and we can't do that. And for Carrington, to John A. Carrington, to go on and say, "Oh, it's all about white privilege." I mean, give me a break. A foul's a foul.
Yeah, well, you mentioned her, the woman that you saw that clotheslined Sophie Cunningham, who happens to be black. Just that people have different skin tones. She came out right after she'd been ejected, because she was ejected, and properly so, for that kind of flagrant foul. It's normal in sports, men's sports as well. But she texted or put on X or whatever that it was white privilege is why she got ejected, which is ridiculous because she's injecting race on top of this ridiculousness about arguing about men should play women's sports. And even to her credit, Sophie Cunningham, who has been ejected herself for flagrant fouls, admitted that herself. She said she didn't think it was about race, but she's been kind of gracious about it. When you tweet something like white privilege out there, it is obviously about race because you made it about race.
I love what Morgan Freeman said. If you want to stop the race divide, stop talking about it. It'll go away. People bring attention to it. When you bring attention to it, John, people have to take sides, and then it's like one tries to outdo the other one, and it makes the divide worse, and it creates more anger, and that's where we are in society. And this is where the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders, not so much Bernie, but the other ones are doing this race card over and over again. Ayanna Pressley, Jasmine Goodbye Crockett, we won't have to see anymore. I mean, she was the mouthpiece for that. And when you do that, again, it just causes more dissent and you get more division in our country. Miss Carrington would have done a good service to female athletes, to the sports of WNBA, by just ignoring it and say, you know what, I did a foul and move on. But throwing race in there is just it's very childish, and it's very unbecoming of a professional. Whereas Sophie Cunningham, when she did it, she just accepted the foul and moved on. And this is again where you're going in the society as we keep going down this road. We need at some point say we're all Americans and get back together and build this country strong, because of the DSA and that whole movement is working to tear this country apart. And they're going to use useful idiots like Carrington to say, oh, she was a victim too, like Colin Kaepernick. I'm sure he'll be on her sideline kneeling down next game she's in.
Yeah, well, when you inject race into it, it really gets kind of crazy because if you believe the scientists will tell you that they've done some research on DNA and the chromosomes and all of this kind of stuff. And basically, during the Ice Age, this is what the scientists say. It's not me saying that we almost, as a species, went extinct. We almost did. And that actually there's very little difference in genetic DNA when it comes to the actual races. It's not as diverse as we once thought. There is a very fine line there between us. So we all, to a certain extent, are mutts. If you think about it, we're all kind of interwoven. And someone like Barack Obama, was he the first black president, the first transracial president? I mean, so to me, it gets totally convoluted. I don't have a problem with people being proud to be whatever race they want to claim they are, but to separate yourself, because here's the weirdest thing about that, Ted. You know, the whole civil rights movement and affirmative action and all this kind of stuff, debate whether you like it or not, was about inclusion of Black Americans specifically into the society as a whole. That's what it was supposed to be. It had mixed results. But now you see, like at universities, and at Harvard, for instance, they have separate graduations if you want to participate for Black people. Black people are segregating themselves individually, not I'm not saying as a whole, but it's really getting loony out there when it comes to race and sexuality.
Well, it is. I mean, we've just gone off the deep end on this. I mean, the BET, Black Entertainment Television Network. What if there's a white entertainment television network? You start dividing people, you become tribal in nature, and you start looking at the things that tear us apart instead of binding us together. We need to look at America and get back. I mean, there's so many other things that are serious problems in this world or in our nation. With what's going on in the Middle East, our dollar, China, lack of weapons. We need to wake up, America, and enjoy basketball for what it is. It's a sport. It's entertainment.
Well, you know what would have been really interesting, and I'm glad it didn't happen because I think I know what would have happened. If Sophie Cunningham had come back with something that was considered racial, like, that, I don't know, blacks, whatever. Do you think it would have been received the same way? I think she'd have been drubbed out of the league if
I think
she'd
she
have
would have
said
been.
something similar about, black privilege or whatever you want to call it.
Right. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, but Bill Maher had an interesting comment over the weekend. He's becoming, I guess, I want to say he's MAGA by any stretch, but he's about had enough of some of this far out leftist craziness. And he wasn't really talking about this situation with Sophie Cunningham on his show because it actually happened after, but he talks about this lady named Francesca Hong, who will probably win the Democratic primary for Wisconsin governor tomorrow and could actually win the whole thing. But he talks about that on his show. And let's play it real quick and we'll come back and talk about it.
I mean, look at this Francesca Hung. I mentioned in the monologue what she said about whiteness and toxicity. She described her son. Now, she has an ex-husband who is white. Yes. Okay, she's Asian. She described his wrestling with, this is her own son, being in proximity to whiteness. Of all the things I think the Democrats have to lose, number one, whiteness. It's not a disease. You look like nice people. You're nice people, right?
Yeah, kinda.
I think
you might be Italian, so it's
oh yeah, I'm white
latecomer.
ethnic, I guess,
Okay, well I'm sorry, but that does not count as a person of color.
No.
That's a person with a good tan. That's a very different thing. But this has got to go, I think. I think this is their big flaw.
Proximity to whiteness. That's a new one on me. Francesca Hahn says she literally is criticizing her own son. She married a white gentleman. I think they're divorced now. She's got a son that is obviously mixed. She's Korean. He's white. And she talked about how difficult it was for her to be in proximity to whiteness. And she also talked about running her restaurant. And Bill Maher didn't address this, but she talked about feeling uncomfortable going into a restaurant that's mostly full of old white people. Yet she wants to be the governor, and she married a white man. I'm confused, Ted.
Well, the proximity of whiteness, I guess there was because they had a baby between her and her white husband. So there was some proximity that got close there. But again, John, this just shows you how disjointed these people are, disconnected they are. These people being that far left, the DSA type of candidates, and you really need to listen to these DSA candidates. I think of Al Saeed, Abdul Al Saeed. He was real far left. Hassan Piker and all that were supporting him. And Hassan Piker is he should be deemed a domestic terrorist. And they need to look at keeping that guy under watch 24/7 with the rhetoric he puts out. And so these DSA characters are really pushing this, and so you get people like Al Saeed, that was DSA, and then he moderated and say, "Oh, I don't believe in that. I just part of that party," and he's blowing it off. AOC is doing the very same thing. She's moderating. If you'll watch, there's liberal progressives in the party up in DC and in the nation that's saying she's gotten too moderate. And she's doing that specifically so that she's lining herself up for a presidential run. And she's very well spoken. She's an attractive lady. And her views are just 100% DSA, socialism, communism. Don't anybody be fooled by that.
Yeah, absolutely. And people need to understand that. I mean, you talk about this Al Assad, the guy that's running for Senate in Michigan, and they've been debating about will the Democrats come back together and all that kind of stuff. Well, I don't know about the voters. It's up to you in Michigan how you're going to vote. But the Democratic Party has already sold out. Barack Obama's already contacted him, said he's wanting to help him. Kamala Harris, AOC, and Bernie, of course. Even Chuck Schumer has come out, and he hasn't endorsed him, but he said, of course, we have to support the Democratic nominee because we need to take back the Senate. Now, here's a guy who is a Jewish American who professes to be, practicing Jewish person, and apparently he would side with the terrorist. I mean, I was talking to a Jewish friend of mine this weekend.
He'd side with Satan.
Yeah, I got to say this, Ted, get it off my chest. It is to my Jewish brethren out there, it is a dadgum shame when an old Southern white boy who grew up in Hawthorne, Florida, in the South, cares more about Jewish people and the state of Israel than a guy like Chuck Schumer who claims to represent you. It is a dadgum shame, and it's just insane to me.
Well, again, John, people need to wake up on what's going on here. Al Saeed's father was in charge of CARE, the Center for American Islamic Relationships. It has been deemed a terrorist organization. I think Governor DeSantis outlawed it here in Florida. Their biggest fundraisers or supporters are the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, this has roots all over radical Islam in the Middle East and European countries now, and that's who's supporting Al Saeed. So he is part of that. And their whole thing is to get rid of Western ideology. And you look who they got. Look at the lady in Xavier in New Jersey that beat a liberal progressive, the chairman of the Liberal Progressive Party, SBI. She beat him, and she says her whole goal is to get rid of Western ideology. She wants to wipe it off the map. Al Saeed, same thing. Hassan Piker, same thing. And these are all people that are supported or they support AOC, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and the list goes down. And like you said, Chuck Schumer's on there. And the only reason Chuck Schumer's doing this is he doesn't want to be left out. He wants to be part of the team, but they don't want him. I mean, they get rid of him in a minute. And the Jewish people, like you said, it perplexes me that you get probably a third of the Jewish population are supporting Zoran Madani. And these other people, like this lady running for Francesca Hong. And so they're going to get exactly what they want. And what they're doing is they're building that divide between America, and that's going to lead to a civil war. I mean, these two things can't exist.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I got into a conversation, a passionate one. It wasn't heated because we both agree with this Jewish friend. Was an Israeli national. He's an American citizen now, and he watches the show. Hello, my friend. How are you? If you're watching, but what really irritates me and scares me, and I wish people would see it. I don't talk about Nazis much mainly because they are a unique form of evil to a certain extent.
Yeah, they were, no doubt.
I think it's a disservice to how evil they were to just randomly compare people. But there were people in Nazi Germany, like Goebbels, for instance, probably never would have got on the front line and fired a shot, but would absolutely create the Holocaust. There are people in this movement like that. Am I saying Mandami would create a Holocaust? No, but Hassan Piker would. That dude would. That guy.
Oh, no doubt. That guy's
me.
radical.
He reminds me of a Goebbels. In other words, I'm not even saying Assad would do it or El Assad, but guys like Piker, if they actually had real power, they would push people in an oven. I do believe that. And women need to especially wake up, because this Muslim Brotherhood idea and all of that, and the people supporting some of these people behind the scenes, the last thing they are for is women's rights. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get a feed from Afghanistan. And, of course, we built schools over there in our 20-year debacle over in the Middle East. We built these schools. Women were going to school. They were graduating. They were getting educated. As soon as Biden pulled out, Taliban came in, they erased all the schools for women. They can go to the 6th grade, and then they go out and become a baby factory and walk, so many feet behind their husband. And I lost my train of thought, so I'm going to pass it back to you.
That's all right. So before we go to break, I want to kind of circle back with this Sophie Cunningham incident and the whole women and transgender. An interesting event has now happened. 2 former NBA players, Aeneas Kanter, who is Turkish, by the way, he's a Muslim, but he's converted to Christianity now because he sees that, he's all about freedom and loves the United States of America. And a guy named Royce White. These two, you see the picture up there now, they have declared for the WNBA draft. Now, are they serious about it? Probably not. But they're pushing the issue. It's interesting that men are standing up for women's sports more than a lot of women are, with big exceptions like Sophie Cunningham and Maria Navratilova, who is gay, by the way, has stood up for women only.
She sure has.
Sports. So it's interesting, but men have stepped up to this. So it's going to be interesting to see. The WNBA put out a statement that just perplexes me. They talk about that women only in their sport, but they don't define what a woman is. And then the commissioner literally said, this is a nuanced argument. What is nuanced about the fact that you're Ted, I'll turn it back to you in a second, but here's what I'm thinking. I don't know how many genders there are, okay? But I'll say this. One gender I'm aware of goes to a urologist. Another gender I'm aware of goes to a gynecologist, and all other genders go to a psychiatrist. That's my statement. But I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Well said. I can't come over that. What I was going to tell you, I got my thought back, is in Dearborn, Michigan, we're talking about this movement, this DSA, and it used to be, it was just the socialism coming in, but we're gone beyond that, because now the thing that's really driving this is the more radical side of Islam. And if you go up to Dearborn, Michigan, now that they've got a Muslim majority in a lot of those big towns, they're making it a crime, not a crime. They're saying that a church bell, Christian church bell, cannot ring any louder than the Muslim call to prayer. because it's offensive and it goes against the noise ordinance. So they're using our laws to suppress Christian religion. And then as their numbers increase, it's going to get worse. And this exactly is what the Clash of Civilization outlines, written by Samuel Huntington, that you've heard me reference many times in this. This is exactly what he was talking about. They start off small and they get bigger and bigger, and then they start writing the rules to favor their religion and nobody else's. And that's not the way America is. And we welcome all, but you're not going to change a very basic playbook called the Constitution. And this is where people need to get educated, because this is happening in America. Maryland's doing the same thing. They're putting bills in that give special preference to hiring people for jobs in government for Muslims. Um, and so now we're picking classes, winners and losers in government, and these states are doing this. Is Maryland right up there in D.C. This is happening. Wake up, America! We can't afford this. It's time to change it now. Not change it and run them out, but there's one playbook. It's the Constitution, and this is a Christian nation.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I remind you to call Freddie. Make that call so you can become part of our team. Help us to educate, motivate, and activate people. Take us to break, Ted.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody. We ask you to spread our viewership far and wide and visit our sponsors. Great one is Archer Automotive and Transmission Repair, family owned for over 20 years. They were founded in 2004. They're at 15901 Southwest Archer Road. You can call them for an appointment, 495-2485, 495-2484. And they open up at 7:30 a.m. and close at 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. We'll see you after the break.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, the old salty dog, John Martin, and of course, the ever steady captain of our pirate ship, Mr. Ted Yoho. Well, Ted, we've talked a lot about Iran and the Iran war, but Ted Cruz over the weekend put out a statement in an interview about a strategy that he thinks needs to be employed. And I really would like your opinion on this. He said that we being the United States of America, need to arm the Kurds and send them in to help collapse Iran's regime. He's also talking about arming any, opposition groups in Iran. What are your thoughts about that in general? And then we'll get into some specifics in a minute.
I think it's a bad idea. I think we should follow George Washington over 250 years ago. Honest and fair trade with all nations, entanglement with none. How many times are we going to go through this scenario? And I got a lot of respect for Ted Cruz, smart guy. We armed Noriega or the Contras down in where was it? El Salvador?
Yeah.
All right. So we armed them.
Nicaragua, I think.
Nicaragua, I'm sorry. So did that do any better? Did we get any better? We armed the people in Vietnam. We armed people all over the world. Has it really made a difference? The ones we should have armed was Ukraine, and we didn't do that. And had we done that early and made a strong stance and tied up with our NATO allies and locked arms and all stood up as a bloc against Putin, that would have made a difference. If we're the only country arming these people, absolutely not. And the Kurds they're hard fighters. They are, they're Muslim, but they're the ones that are just more rational when it comes to this kind of stuff. They don't have that hatred for America. And so I just think this is a wrong thing. And I agree with them. The Islamic Republic should be gone. I mean, they're a terrorist organization. We deemed them that. But to arm the opposite side of that, who's going to arm the IRGC? It's going to be China, Russia, North Korea, Cuba, anybody that can that hates America. And so what you get is a proxy war. And I meant to tell you too that Hamas is being funded by the Muslim Brotherhood. So that goes right into Palestine to fund the Hamas. So we've got all these factions working against Western civilization, and that really is the bottom argument here. All these other organizations are trying to tear down Western civilization. And so we get in as the Islamic Republic and arm these people. It's going to weaken us as a nation. It's going to drive any allies we have left further away from us. And ultimately, it's going to power China, who's just sitting in the wings, waiting for the right moment to strike. I think this is a bad idea, and I don't think we should do it alone.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Hamas. Well, there's another story kind of broke over the weekend. Netanyahu pretty forcefully came out and said he does not support the current aspect of the agreement with Hamas because they got to be disarmed before they go to the next level. And you can understand from his perspective
absolutely,
exactly why that is. And the thing about it, Ted, and if you think about this, it really shows how unique Western civilization, and especially the American experiment, because it truly still is an experiment, is because the Middle East has never really historically ever been at peace. The only time it's been close to at peace is when you had like the Persian Empire ruling it with an iron fist, that kind of thing. And it wasn't at peace, it was just in fear. But the Middle East has never really had a time in history where they were just calm. There was always some type of something going on. And I don't know if they have the capability to be at peace. Do I wish they were? Yes. Do I think we need to keep trying to foster that? Absolutely. But at the same time, this arming of the Kurds, one thing about it, I thought about it while you were talking, Ted, and I'll pass it back to you after I say this, that the United States history of arming other people is mixed at best. I can't think of a single time when we armed anyone who was not a democracy that it worked out well for us. All the other, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't remember arming any group that was not democratic that it turned out well for us.
No, I mean, history repeats itself, and we're going to do it again. This whole thing with Trump trying to get a peace deal in Iran, I applaud him for that, but I don't think we should have been in Iran. But that's beyond the fact. So now he's going to work out a deal with Saudi Arabia, right? He's going to give them technology for small nuclear reactors, but he wants them to be 100% on board with us. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. And he wants to make sure that the nuclear program is 100% peaceful and no nuclear armament. And they won't agree to that. So that's a stalemate. And so what that did is it forced Saudi Arabia to form an alliance. It's called the Mecca Accord. It's between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Palestine. And it's basically like a NATO compact. An attack on one of these Muslim countries is an attack on all. And how does Iran fit into that? And I think they're building this coalition so that they can bring Iran under control. Let them deal with that. And then keep in mind, President Trump was talking about giving Recep Erdogan, the president of Turkey, our F-35s. F-35s are the top of the line, most advanced aircraft out there. Turkey is aligned with Russia. He doesn't side with us in NATO a lot of the times. He blocks a lot of the initiatives the other NATO countries want to do. And he's aligned with Saudi Arabia and Palestine. And Saudi Arabia and Palestine are keeping an arm's distance from America. So this is a bad idea that Trump wants to do. But going back to what Ted Cruz said, we need to stay out of it. Let them deal with this and harden our defenses here. It's time to circle the wagons, I think, and go back to what George Washington. I'll trade with you, but we're not going to get entangled in your country. Period.
Well, the problem too with arming the Kurds, and I have a lot of respect in general for the Kurds. They have sided with us most of the time. Matter of
They
fact,
have.
we betrayed them in some other areas and caused a massacre of them. So they're still with us. But here's the thing: they're not totally unified either. And
No,
the
they're
thing
not.
is, if they for Iran specifically, the one thing that might unify the Iranian people to side with the Republican Guard is if a foreign force comes in to invade them. Very few countries look at that very fondly, so you got that. And then you mentioned Turkey, which has its own issue with Kurds and that
Right.
type of
That's
thing.
I was going to
So
bring that up.
yeah, it's going to sour the milk there if it's not already soured. I don't see anything that is going to make Iran more passive or the Middle East more stable. The Kurds aren't really about that. So if we were to arm them and be clearly behind them, I don't see a good outcome.
I don't. And you brought up a very good point. I meant to bring that up. Is the Kurds are an enemy to Turkey for the most part. There's two factions of them, and Erdogan, the president of Turkey, sees them as a terrorist group. So here we're talking. Ted Cruz is saying arm the Iranian Kurdish people to fight against Iran. That's going to be a direct threat to Turkey. And can you see how that just pushes them further away from us, pushes them closer to China and Russia, and further away from us into the arms of Saudi Arabia and Palestine? So we're creating another defensive bloc that is not going to be a partner of ours. And Turkey being a member of NATO, they're not going to side with us. They're going to side with their Muslim Brotherhood. And you said something about Obama. I meant to bring that up, this off topic. He's going to join that group now and help these people get elected. He is the reason those people are getting elected. That was his fundamental transformation of America. So we can throw this on him. And, so that's off topic. We'll get back to the Kurds here. He will not side with the Kurds.
I hear you. Well, to me, and we've kind of talked about this before, but the whole thing, I agree with you 100%. We should not have done this latest action with Iran because it just opened up a can of worms. I was 100% in favor of knocking their nukes out because, as I've said many times, and I'll say it again, I honestly believe that bunch, the Republican Guard, the Ayatollahs, if they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. Period. I believe that. So I'm 100% behind that. At this point, I think that Trump has opened up this can of worms. I'm a big supporter of Trump, but I think this was a big time mistake. And I think the only real solution now, if there is one, is a whack-a-mole strategy where we basically just degrade them as much as we possibly can militarily. Then we park a satellite over them, essentially, keep forces in the area, and every time they pop their head up, hit them, whack them. That's the only thing. I don't think outside of a total invasion on our part is going to solve this because the Republican Guard people they are fight or die right now. I think that there will be no peace for them. If you put yourself in their position, and I'm not trying to do that, I don't respect anything about them. But if you think about it, if you truly believe in the fundamentalism they believe in, there is no negotiation. Because let's say that they negotiated and said, okay, we'll all go to, I'm just throw something out, Pakistan. How long before they'd be killed there? Really?
Oh, yeah.
So they have created a situation that they're the Republican Guard where they feel like, and I think they're right, either fight or die. There is nothing else for them.
That's pretty much where they are.
I wish I was wrong, but I think I'm right. Go ahead, sir.
Well, and then as the Muslim population grows in America, that's what's going to happen here. You either convert to Islam or you become a slave, basically, or they put you to death. I don't know if you saw that that journalist. His last name is Lang. He was up in Dearborn. He said Jesus Christ is King of Dearborn, and they started stoning him. They attacked him violently. Megyn Kelly's got a short video of it. But this is how intolerant this religion of tolerance is. They're not, and going back to what Ted Cruz said, and you're absolutely right about what you brought up. There will be no peace until you bring these people down to their knees, and they just say, "I'm done." It's not worth it. We'll be good. We'll be good citizens, but we're not going to change that ideology. And again, I think this is the biggest mistake Trump has done. And I'm saying that not knowing what he knew. He obviously knew a heck of a lot more than I did. So I'll give him a pass on that till I find out. But if it was not a concrete thing where it was imminent, this was a big mistake. And this is where I hold Rubio accountable and JD Vance, because they knew, and Pete Hegseth, to go into another Islamic country in the Middle East just makes absolutely no sense. I think there's better ways to do this, and we could have been prepared more by having, like I talked to you before, about having gas coming out of the United States to fill up that void in the Straits of Hormuz, and let them block it. We'll get oil out other ways and
Absolutely.
ignore them. Yeah.
Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit in a way, but I think this issue I'm about to bring up kind of is like a thread through all kind of stuff in our own country. And this is from the Daily Caller article. Weed overtakes alcohol. Marijuana in various forms now is actually being used more on a daily basis than alcohol is in this country. Ted, that is unbelievable, and I believe it's true.
I believe it's true. I know when I go to the big cities, man, that's all you smell. I mean, it's got such a pungent smell. You smell it. And I smell it when I go to New York. I smell it when I go to DC. And you go to the big cities around here, I smell it in Gainesville. Well, and probably here in Weelaca too. But it is, and I know the younger generation is moving to that. They're getting away from alcohol. There again, that's your future society, and we know for a lot of people that's a gateway drug into other drugs. Not everybody that smokes pot is going to become a crackhead, but there's good studies that show a lot of the youth, when they get on that, they just keep going to the next one, and the next one. And this is the whole thing I got against legalizing marijuana. And I think we can thank people like Morgan and Morgan, who are not as sponsors of ours, but they could be, how they pushed that on on Florida. And it's a travesty is what it is. And there'll be ramifications 10 years from now. They'll say, oh, pot caused this, pot caused that. And, we can thank Morgan and Morgan.
Well, you made a comment, and I'll tell you what because about marijuana, is it a gateway drug? Absolutely, and I can prove it to you. I mean, to me, I've had more experience than I would care to admit, but I've talked about it in depth. I used to tell my clients this when I worked at a drug treatment center, and maybe someone could find an exception. I'm not saying, just like you said, that anybody who smokes pot is going to do heroin or crack or whatever. But I have never met anyone who didn't smoke cigarettes or never tried marijuana who woke up one day and said, I've never drank alcohol. I've never smoked cigarettes. I've never smoked pot, but today would be a great day to mainline some heroin. I've never met anybody like that. So it is a gateway drug. There's just no debate about that. And I'm not even condemning people that smoke pot, but why is cannabis now, this question, so important? Because especially young people, Ted, from the research, are using this drug to cope with anxiety, depression, social media pressure, and economic pessimism. So that kind of explains, to a certain extent, playing into this whole thing with the DSA and all that, because a lot of young people are believing that the American dream is beyond their reach. They're very depressed and they're turning to drugs and alcohol, but marijuana is becoming their elixir now.
No, you're right about that. And, as far as the American dream, and I hear a lot of people say, especially the DSA and the liberal progressives, the American dream is out there. It's out there for anybody that's willing to work. There is a four-letter word that you have to do, and that's work. It's not free. It's the opportunity to go out and achieve what you want to in this country. If you don't believe that, ask any pro athlete. You know, they took advantage of an opportunity. They had certain talents. And so for people to say it's gone, and that's what the DSAs and the socialists and the Elizabeth Warren and people like that are going to say, oh, you can't achieve that. It's gone because the evil white wealthy people, the billionaires, are suppressing you because they want you to be a working class. I want everybody to have the success Carolyn and I had, and probably you feel the same way. You want people to have the success you had and your family has had, and you're probably the best spokesman for talking about the drugs and what can happen to you. But if you turn your life around, the other side of what can happen to you in a positive way, and that's the message to get out there for these people, doing the pot thing. I guess it's okay to do it, but don't let it run your life.
Absolutely. Well, I tell people all the time. They used to ask me, "Well, how do you define an addiction or a problem?" And I tell them, it's really simple. Whatever causes a problem is a problem. Period. That it's as simple as it gets. Whatever causes a problem, gambling, all kind of things, even fishing, for instance. If I go all the time, whatever causes a problem is a problem. So if it's causing you to not take care of your family, to not respect your parents or your grandparents and all that, to not being willing to go to work and being able to take care of yourself, it is a problem. It's not up to me to define what your problem is, because if it's calling you a problem, it's a problem. That's as simple as it gets.
It really is. And so, bottom line, don't do pot.
Yeah, well, the problem, the fear I have, Ted, is for the younger people to turn around now because they're being pushed on all this thing, social media. I mean, this idea that the American dream is not reachable, there's some realities to that we can deal with, but there's also social media, because I tell you, how many people, I know you don't do Facebook much, but I see people on Facebook all the time that I personally know, and I'll let them remain anonymous, that if you looked at their Facebook posts, you would say they are living the life of Riley, man. These people are just happy, but I know them and they're miserable. They're posting all of this stuff, and they're absolutely almost suicidal sometimes. So you can't believe everything you see on Facebook, and I think people are tuning into that, and then people make excuses. There's statistics out there, Ted, that I think all this ties together, that especially with young men, it's frightening how many young men aren't even plugged into society at all. They don't even go to work. They don't go to school. They don't go to work. There's a term called, a stay-at-home boyfriend now. I mean, I don't understand why these women put up with it, but that's another subject.
I don't either, John. I mean, there's so much out there to gain from going out and working. And I think that's the biggest thing. People think the American dream's gone. We worked. I mean, and I know a lot of people are working and they feel like they're not getting ahead. It's not an easy ride most of the time. But if you stay focused and you work, man, life gets so much better. And I got to drop back to the socialists. They're selling this whole thing, free Medicare, like Hong up there running for governor, up there in Michigan. So she's running for that, telling people we're going to have free health care, free childhood care, government-run grocery stores or free food, all this stuff. And I've gotten in the Wall Street Journal today. They've got a thing, an article called "Tax Freedom Day: Europe versus the U.S." They don't get freedom from their tax burden over there, until late July. Some of the countries are August, and they're paying on the average of 45 to 60% in income tax by the time you get all your free stuff. America, we've got 30, the highest for most people is about 30%. A lot of people are way under that. And our tax burden day is over April 16th, I think. And so everybody's saying, oh, we want all this free stuff. It ain't free. You're going to pay for it. And they're going to take it out of your wages. So if you make $100, they're going to take $60 out and they'll leave you 40. In America, in a capitalist society, you make $100, government will take 30. You've got 70%. I mean, do the math.
Yeah, well, some of these guys, Ted, I mean, if you're not working at all, what difference does it make what they take out of your check? Because you don't have one.
No, they get free money.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And even the free grocery stores, Mondami's come out and said you're going to have an ID to shop there. So that's kind of interesting in its own right. But
It is such a joke. I mean,
I want to go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's just such a joke. I was thinking of that. People say, well, you got to have it's racist to require people to have a driver's license or ID. But how many people in different classes, they smoke and they drink. And if you go to a Dollar General or 7-Eleven or Circle K, you buy a pack of beer or a six pack, I need to see your ID. I'm 71 and they still ask me. And so everybody has an ID. It's just political fodder so that one side can say, oh, you're racist if you ask us. Kind of like the basketball player got ejected for being a bad player, or she did a bad foul, and she wants to blame it on being racist instead of saying, no, you did a bad foul.
Absolutely. Well, Ted, I got something to say. Yeah, I'm absolving you of this. It's just me.
Please.
But really and truly, George Carlin had a routine about this. It's all the women's fault. Okay, I'm going to tell you, it's all your fault because men only do whatever they need to do to do. Okay, so it was a woman who got us out of the cave because she told the man, look, I'm tired of laying on this cold stone floor. You got to go build something. If you look at cross society and places where women cover up everything, men built all kind of stuff, the Industrial Revolution. In places like Tahiti, where they went around topless, all a man did was build a grass hut, okay? So it's women's fault. And the thing is, in the countries where they cover up everything with the hijab and everything, men got so frustrated, they started blowing stuff up. So if women are allowing men to lay around and do nothing, it's on you, gals. You need to take charge of that.
Tighten
but I want
up.
to play
Get those
something, and I'll
bums
turn
out
it
of the
back to you,
house.
Ted. I'll let you off the hook on. I don't want to get you in trouble on that. But I got to play my all-time favorite public service ad that was in the late 70s, early 80s when I was doing the token myself. And I can so relate to this. We'll play this and we'll come back and let you close the show out. Check it out.
Sure.
Look at this. The marijuana can mess you up. Right. We've been getting high for what, 15 years? Nothing's ever happened. Did I get into all the drugs and start mugging people? Nah, didn't do anything. In fact, I'd say I'm exactly the same as when I smoked my first joint.
Eddie, did you even look for a job today?
No, Ma.
Marijuana can make nothing happen to you, too.
I love that, Ted, where it says marijuana never caused me to do nothing. Amen.
That was a great one. And that other one with the egg frying.
Yeah.
This is an egg on, getting cooked. This is your brain on drugs, the analogy. But no, I appreciate it. And John, I appreciate you putting the show together. I appreciate our listeners tuning in. Please spread our word far and wide. The elections are coming up. Right now, it's favored. The House is going to have a very, very small majority of 1 or 2 in the House, and they'll probably toss up on the Senate. But I'm optimistic, and I'm going to say they're going to hold on to it. This election is really for the direction of the country for the next 20, 30 years. And then we go that's going to set the stage for the presidential election in 2028. And whoever wins that, if it goes to the liberal, progressive, socialist, communists, this country's over. And it'll be forever in our lifetime before we get it back. John, is there anything else you want to say before I close it out with our sponsor?
No, other than everybody have a great week and get out and vote early.
Get out, vote early and often. And then visit our sponsor, Archer Automotive and Transmission Repair. They are at 15901 Southwest Archer Road. They're open up at 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Call for an appointment. 352-495-2485 for all of your needs, mechanically, car, truck, lawnmower. Just kidding. Although they could fix your lawnmower. But you all take care, and we'll see you on Friday afternoon.
Peace out, everybody.